Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Uptown Expert Podcast. I have my friend here, Luigi Cirocco. Louis, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back on. I must have done okay on the first episode to be invited back, I guess.
Not so bad. Not so bad at all. I got to say, it's always a pleasure to...
I brought a script this time.
He came prepared. Came with the numbers. He's breaking out the numbers today, ladies and gentlemen. The mortgage side of the business.
Yes, sir. So what are we looking at today?
We're here to talk about mortgage affordability, housing affordability, and, in the last segment, Marcus was talking about, is now a good time to buy, and, asking a bunch of questions about affordability and people that are trying to enter the market. So we felt it was wise to bring you in to have this conversation about, what do we do, right? This is the question. What do people do?
Well, is now the right time to buy is a question that's been coming up a lot, I think, from a lot of our clients. And so that's piggybacking off of the conversation you had with Marcus. So I got busy, as you can see here on this piece of paper, to see if it actually is a good time to buy. Because, if you talk to a lot of realtors, especially realtors that have been starving for business over the last 6 months, of course it's a good time to buy.
Every day is a good day to buy.
Every day is a good time to buy. But I wanted to substantiate it with some numbers. So
it's a real number. So
do you want to tell the people what you got in front of you, what we've done here, and then
let's dive
into
in.
it.
Let's dive in. So what we're talking about today is, does it make sense to buy in today's market as compared to March last year?
Last year, just before the
craziness started?
the dip to the market, right? Just before prime went up and started to throw everything off kilter and values were dropping.
Yeah. So, comparative analysis, we're looking about 1 year spent, which is pretty good if you think about it. But the numbers that we're going to work with here today, obviously, are going to be March 2022 as compared to December 2022.
Exactly, yeah. So this, if I can set the scene for the listeners, for the viewers, this is for that individual that was looking to buy, looking to get into the market, whether it was a principal residence or possibly a rental property, or some of our older clients who have a little bit more money, maybe they wanted to buy something for their kids. They saw what happened with the market, rates skyrocketing, and then they just sort of stepped back and said, let's wait, let's see where this is going. And then they just got discouraged. They saw the rates just continue to go up, and the sentiment from a lot of those people that we talked to is, I think I might have missed my opportunity. Rates are just so high now. I don't think it even makes sense. Yes, property values are lower. I can buy something for less money.
Correct.
But unless I'm paying cash for that, I'm still going to need to borrow, and my borrowing power has significantly dropped. So there's that sense of discouragement with a lot of these individuals that they feel like they've missed the opportunity because rates are so high.
Correct. Yeah.
And
we're hearing that.
I wanted to dive in.
Yeah.
Right? I wanted to dive in and see, do the numbers support that, or is there a way to, is there a positive spin to all this doom and gloom, I guess, is why we have this, why we're having this conversation.
Yeah. So, let's look at the numbers. So the first example we have is purchasing a semi-detached home, York region as an example. And so if we utilize the numbers in March 2022, where a potential purchase price was $1,332,000.
Well, so let's maybe tell the people that we pulled the TREB data.
Correct.
So we're looking at the average2 in York region.
Correct.
For 2022.
For 2022.
We're comparing March to the end of the year, December of 2022. And the particular example we have is for a semi-detached home, to set the scene.
Correct. So as we look through the examples or look to walk you guys through the example, we're going to say the estimated purchase price at that time was $1,332,000, as compared to being able to purchase the same home or similar home.
Yeah, in theory.
In theory, exactly, to with a value of $1,040,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would have given you, if you're purchasing a home now or in December, that would give you a potential savings of roughly
almost 300,000.
Yeah, 291, right? So that's a win, right? Values are down. You're buying for less. So what's the flip side? What does that mean to that buyer?
Exactly. I think it's what does it mean? Because it doesn't take a mortgage professional to know that you can buy a house today or in December of 2022, excuse me, when we pulled the data, for less money than you could have in March of 2022.
Yeah, that's
right? Everybody knows that.
Common knowledge.
The other side of that coin is, does it make sense though? Because it costs so much more to borrow money now. So did I miss my opportunity?
Yeah. So looking at...
So if it's all right with you, I'd like to dive into this a little bit, using this specific example for the people, for the viewers. Okay, so I'm going to dive in a little bit here. So use those numbers that you were kind enough to pull for us. Okay, so purchase price of the average semi-detached home in March of 2022. Okay, right before the market flipped on its head, was $1,332,000 approximately. Okay, the average price though in December had dropped, as you said, to $1,040,000. So right off the hop, you're getting a discount on the price, which is a positive, about a $291,000 difference in price.
Correct.
More money in your pocket that way. So how does that impact the down payment? Okay, so let's assume you were doing 20% down in either of these scenarios. Okay, so 20% down in March of 2022 was approximately $266,000. But for that same home in December of 2022, well, 20% down is now $208,000.
So there's a savings there.
So now $58,000 less is required to purchase that same home, right, on the down payment. So that's either money in your pocket that you don't have to put down, that you can put to work for other things, buy furniture with, whatever the story is. Or maybe you're the buyer that didn't have $266,000.
Exactly.
You could never get this home in March of 2022. Now you only require $208,000. So it's a $58,000 difference in down payment. Okay. This obviously then impacts the respective mortgage amounts in these two scenarios. Okay. So in March of 2022, with that down payment, we're now looking at a mortgage of $1,065,000 approximately. Okay. Whereas in December of 2022, the mortgage with 20% down then would be about $832,000. Okay. So you're starting right off the hop with a mortgage that's $233,000 less than compared to that same house in March of 2022. Okay. Again, I don't think this is revolutionary. Everybody can kind of do this basic math, maybe not this specific, but you understand that if the house costs less, I don't need as much to buy it, and therefore my mortgage won't be as big.
Correct.
But now we get to the rates.
Yeah, because this is where things really start to change, because this is where, as we talked about, people are saying, okay, yeah, I buy for less now. I get it. I'm buying for less. Yeah, we get that.
But what about my payment? Rates are so much higher.
Exactly. You're talking about, prime used to be whatever it is. And now we're talking at, 5%, 6% interest rates, Lou.
Fixed rates, yeah.
What are we talking about here? Does it really make sense? That's the question.
Well, spoiler alert. I'm here to answer that question.
Okay. So talk to me. What are these examples?
So here's what I've done. Okay. So I've compared an interest rate that was available towards the end of March of 2022, a reasonable interest rate for that time, fixed rate, okay, to an interest rate that we can get today, or excuse me, December of 2022, but more or less they're pretty much the same today, give or take 10 beeps.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, this, again, this is an assumption. We're going 5-year fixed in both of these scenarios, okay? So it's under very specific parameters here. Back in March of 2022, 3.49. It was a realistic 5-year fixed rate. So just after the increases started, okay?
Okay.
I'm not going to the
The lowest
bottom
of the
the bottom, you know,
We're giving something
maybe
that
in
was
January
realistic.
you could have got better, but March of 2022, you were looking at about 3.49% compared to December, or now you're looking at about 4.99% for a 5-year fixed. Okay. So you have a 1.5% difference in the two rates, right? So you are paying 1.5% more
Yeah.
now on your rate for that smaller mortgage. What does that translate to in payments, though? Okay, so in March of 2022, with the better rate but the higher mortgage, your monthly payment, and this is based on a 30-year amortization, would have been $4,764. Okay, in December of 2022, okay, again a 30-year amortization, pardon me, but with a higher rate, 4.99, your payment is about $4,436.
So we're looking at a lower payment.
So in this scenario, a lower payment, yes, by about $328 a month.
Even though my interest rate cost.
Even though your rate's higher.
Makes sense. Because your mortgage amount
is significantly less than it would have been in March of 2022. So higher rate, yes, that impacts payment, of course, but because your mortgage amount was significantly smaller, in the numbers, we can see that, you know, it's not actually a worse scenario, if I can put it that way, okay? Now, this is a very specific example. Obviously, situation to situation, it's going to be slightly different, but I think the point I'm trying to make here is the monthly carrying cost is not going to be this incredibly high, unachievable amount for a lot of people that they think. That there's this misconception that, well, rates are so much higher, so my God, I can't buy that house anymore. My payment's going to be too high. Well, consider that the house price is so much lower. Your mortgage amount is actually going to be lower, the principal that you need to borrow. So when you actually break that down and look at the payment, it's really not all that much different in a lot of cases, and especially this scenario. This scenario works out perfectly where it's actually costing you $328 a month less than it would have back in March of 2022.
When house prices were extremely high and the cost of money was very low.
Cheap, but higher price. Exactly. So you needed to borrow more, but was it really better?
Yeah. So, you know, this is all like really great information. So, you know, just let's unpack it. Let's have a quick conversation of, you know, if you're a buyer or someone that's looking at potentially buying homes or buying real estate today, what you're telling us is at the end of the day, there is still opportunities to potentially purchase real estate and come out positive, come out on the other end.
Definitely opportunity. I think what I'm trying to convey here is if you were a buyer that was waiting to purchase, sitting on the sidelines, I don't think you should be discouraged that prices have come down and rates have gone up, because there's still clearly opportunity. And we haven't even gotten to what my favorite part is, if I can go into that.
All right.
So my favorite part of all this, because we talk down payment savings, yes, rate difference, yes, $330 a month difference in payment, but the balance at maturity. Okay, so what that means for the casual viewer, non-mortgage professional, is when my 5-year term is up, what am I actually going to owe on my mortgage? I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this.
People forget about
what's my rate, what's my payment,
because they're looking at the short term.
Exactly.
But really, an investment in real estate should be a long-term strategy. Unless you're talking about a quick buy, sell, flip, right? But if we're talking about buying something, a primary home, this is something that you're going to be in for a while. So why not look at the full picture in order to draw your analysis?
Not just primary home. I even want to speak to rentals in a second here.
Yeah.
So in scenario one, after you've paid this mortgage down, remember this mortgage that started at $1,065,000 at 3.49%. After 5 years of paying, let's assume you never change your payment, okay? You've been paying $4,764 a month for the entire term, so for those 5 years, at the end of these 5 years, your mortgage will be down to $955,326, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at the numbers in December of 2022. Now, remembering we started with a smaller mortgage, we started at $832,183. Okay.
Higher rate.
Paying a higher rate, a payment of $4,436 every month, again, for 5 years.
Which is a $300 difference. It's like
$300 difference. Well, it's you know, if you look at it over 60 months, over the 5 years, it's $19,000 in your pocket.
Yeah, that's true.
So it is, you know, it depends on how you want to look at it. So I can tell you you'll save $300 a month on your payment, or I can tell you you'll save $19,000 over the 5 years.
Yeah.
Which sounds better. Either way, it's
still
money in my
savings.
pocket. I put it this way: I'd love to have $300
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if it sounds like it's not a lot, I'd love to have it.
Yeah.
I'd rather I have it than
someone else
have it. But the biggest thing is look at the balance at the end of those 5 years.
Yeah.
So
that's
again, to put it into context, you're in the same house in theory, right? So this is the average semi-detached home price in York region. Okay. In one scenario, after 5 years, you're going to owe $955,000 on that mortgage. In the other scenario, in December of 2022, you bought that house. In 5 years, you're going to owe $763,000. Okay, so your payment per month was, let's be honest, almost the same. Again, $19,000 difference over 5 years.
Listen, $300 it's a week's or two grow. Well, in my house, that's like maybe half a week's groceries.
Now it's 4 days of groceries with inflation.
But still, it's something.
But it's a very similar payment for the same house. But I love that number because that shocks people. I always used to say to people in my previous life is, let's step back from the rate for 1 second, because sometimes you get caught up in rate a little bit too much. Let's put the whole thing together. What would you rather owe when these 5 years are up? This big number here or this smaller number here?
Exactly.
Because either way, you're going to be renewing these mortgages, this mortgage or that mortgage, whichever scenario you're in at the end of 5 years.
Exactly.
So let's assume in 5 years, you're going to renew into something, who knows? Could be 3%, could be 5%, who knows? But either way, you're going to renew.
Yeah. So with that being said, there's still something that we haven't talked about, which would be the appreciation against that property. Because now, if you're purchasing that property in what we are calling a down market, and so you think as a realtor, we're saying now's a great time to buy because values are low. And now, if you're buying in a down market and you're showing me the numbers and you're telling me that there's a lower balance at maturity, my total dollars my monthly cash flow is actually positive $328 a month, that's a positive. So now we're looking at two positives with a huge appreciation to potentially be had. So if we're buying this same semi-detached home at $1,040,000 today, and fast forward in 5 years, we're not even talking 1 year or 2 years, but in 5 years, we just get back to that $1.3 million. Well, I mean, that's a huge upside because now that's all of this comes to appreciate. Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So what does that mean for us in terms of the overall savings, the overall strategy here?
Well, everyone can analyze these numbers in their own way, but the way I break it down is I've saved almost $300,000 on the price of the home, okay, which means I've saved $58,000 in down payment. I didn't need to put this additional $58,000
out of pocket.
Correct. Yeah, so I was able to buy that house for cheaper, which means less of my own money had to go into it. Or maybe I didn't have the money in March of 2022. Now I can do it in December of 2022. Real savings for sure, the $19,000 over 60 months, right? That $328 a month. So I look at it as my down payment savings are about $58,000. An additional $19,000 is what I've saved over the 60 months. So for me, it's $78,000 approximately in my pocket from scenario 2, to scenario 1. So $78,000 more in my pocket from December of 2022. But for me, that's not even the biggest thing. The biggest thing is the variance at maturity. So in 5 years from now, I will owe $191,000 less on my mortgage in December of 2022, the one I took, in December of 2022, versus the one I would have taken in March of 2022.
Yeah.
So now I'm renewing a mortgage on a much smaller balance. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, as I mentioned, rentals, right? So some of our clients may be looking to buy something to use as an investment property. Rents right now are
high,
sky high, insane. I don't think they're going down anytime soon.
No.
We're bringing in how many new immigrants?
Yeah. Rental rates.
Builders have stopped building. There's a
strong.
housing shortage. So you've got sky high rental rates. So for some people, they're looking at these as investment properties. Mm-hmm. The higher rate's not going to hurt you too much, right?
No,
because
you have the benefit
in your favor.
Yeah, it's writing that off.
You're writing off the interest against your taxes here. So you're getting that benefit, and you're getting the benefit of owing $763,000 at the end of 5 years versus $955,000,
which gives you a lower balance at maturity. Hopefully, appreciation sets in. So now you have the lower balance, higher value. We have the opportunity to pull some equity out of that property.
The cash flow was, again, the same as it would have been in March of 22. Again, $300 difference. But the higher rate means you were writing off
higher interest costs.
Yeah. So there's maybe a really big win for some potential clients who are looking to buy rentals.
Yeah, 100%. And, if you're a savvy investor, you're looking at now is the time to say, I'm going to utilize the math to say lower mortgage amount with the appreciation to hopefully capture value to be utilized in the future. So, hoping that you do have that growth back in the market where we get back to that $1.3 million mark on that same house that you spent $1 million for. Because now you have the opportunity to hopefully equity pull against that, to an equity takeout, and put that same money back to work for you. And then, if you're savvy enough or lucky enough that you can get into something like this, and, we're talking about a $200,000 down payment, and we refinance, there's an opportunity for you to be able to say, hey, I was able to get into this thing for a very reasonable number if you're able to cash flow it. Because now you're thinking rents are strong, right? If we can get a rent strong enough to hopefully cash flow even, surplus now, or even the larger number in the future, you could really end up on top.
Yeah, and cash flowing a rental now is very tough, obviously, with the cost of real estate in the GTA and rates. I mean, a $4,400 payment. Are you going to be able to rent a semi-detached home for $4,400? Maybe not, but what a lot of people are looking at now as well is, I'm not necessarily buying this rental property for me to generate monthly cash flow like we used to do in the old days. You used to have your parents would buy a rental because
not about that anymore.
I want to make an additional X amount every month.
We're not chasing the $200-$300. That's not what we're doing here.
Now it's this asset. I want to buy it now, even if I am dipping into my own pocket a little bit to make up that difference, because I want my kid to have this asset.
I'm investing in the future.
A generational plan.
Exactly.
Here.
This is a long-term investment strategy. And that's the difference here, going back to what we started with. If you're buying or acquiring real estate in this market, it's with a long-term approach, because you understand that over time, the small investment that we're talking about that might be required on a monthly basis, that $200 or $300, even $500. But now we're talking about putting an additional, $6,000 into a property that you're going to own potentially if need be, and have that potential property rented out and have the appreciation set in over a period of 2 or 3 or 4, 5 years. And on top of that, now we're talking about so many other opportunities because you own the asset. Yeah, and, exactly. It always makes sense to be in the real estate market than on the sidelines. Because if you're in it, whether it goes up or it goes down, you're going to win. But if you're on the sideline, there's only one thing that's happening. Your money is sitting, which really means your money is a depreciating asset, and you're actually losing, right? With that lovely thing that we know as inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you're in a position where you can acquire real estate and qualify to borrow and all that, we talk about looking at what's going to happen in the next 5 years, but go even further.
Mm-hmm.
In 20 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what is rent going to be?
Who knows? My poor kids.
Well, what is rent going to be? What is the value of this house going to be in 20 years from now?
Exactly.
Hopefully good. I mean, I can't predict the future. There's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yes.
But if you ask someone, are you glad you bought your house 20 years ago?
100%.
For the price you bought it for?
100%.
They're always going to say yes.
Yeah. No one's going to say, no, I'm not happy that I spent. I remember my first house.
Same.
You know?
Same.
I bought my first house at
Can't buy
$337,000.
buy a condo.
No, I'm like, I say all the time, like, I was a fool to sell that property, number one. I would never make that mistake again.
It's easy to look back.
Yeah, right? If I knew now what I knew then,
exactly.
right? But, you know, understanding all of this, it doesn't matter which property I've bought. I would still say to this day, I'm happy that I made that investment. And I've only seen progress in terms of appreciation against that asset, even if it's 2%, because we're talking about 2% on a hypothetical $1 million here. I mean, heck, I don't know, Lou, what's 2% on $1 million?
You never said any math was going to be required on the spot during the podcast.
Uh-oh.
Is it $20,000?
$20,000. I don't know.
Is that right?
So it's like at the end of the day, if you made 20 grand, are you happy?
Yeah, I'd like to, on that same train of thought, I'd like to point something else out. A lot of people, what they're trying to do right now is, I'm guilty of this too, I watch the market, is time the bottom of this market, okay, which is not a risky game, but
yeah. Everybody wants to buy at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody. So I'm going to wait. It's going to go down. It's going to go down.
It's November. Is this the bottom?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's December. Is this the bottom? Like, take a step back. Mm-hmm. In 5 years from now, whether you bought in November and it was like just before the bottom, mm-hmm. or maybe you missed the bottom and it was just on the way up, in 5 years from now, you're going to look at it and say, I did well.
I did well. No one's going to look at the chart and be like, I bought over here. If I would have waited 2-3 months. Yeah, okay. So, but you know, you're going to do that in the short run, in the short term.
Yeah, so bringing it back around, people who are discouraged that maybe they missed the boat, mm-hmm. you didn't miss the boat. You know, if you bought after this dip, whether you bought in June when it was still dipping, or you bought in December where it was even lower, in 5 years from now, you're going to be happy.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you know, looking at this, I think you can make the reasonable conclusion that if you are able to get into the market, able to sustain some of the higher interest rates that we're currently foreseeing, or that we're currently seeing, pardon me, there is a potential upside for you.
Very much so, I think.
Yeah, and you know,
and that's important as well. That I think for everyone watching or listening, this isn't for everybody, right? There are people that are feeling the affordability pinch, right? So this 100%. This is certainly not a discussion about stretching affordability. This is speaking to that individual that can qualify, can cash flow comfortably, and they're just trying to identify whether or not it's a good time to dip my toe back into the market.
Is now the time to get into the market, to put my money to work, right? You know, you might have this, like we're talking about $200,000 on the down payment. We're not talking about a small amount of money here. This is a significant amount of money that you would have to have in your possession to put into the market in order to potentially see these types of, you know, benefits longer term.
Right.
And, you know, understanding that, I think we did a pretty good job at breaking it down for them.
Yeah, I think don't always go with the popular narrative, the narrative being like, all right, don't get into the market now. It's so volatile. You don't know what's going to happen. It's like, well, okay.
The sky's falling.
But there are opportunities in every market, and And we decided to do this just because that's the most common answer we've been hearing from our clients.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to maybe look to buy, but like now rates are high. I've missed out. You know, I've kind of missed out. It's like,
yeah. Listen, there's not
maybe not,
much positivity if you, look, I'm not going to knock, anyone or anything. All I'm saying is if you're going to sit there and only listen to the negative narrative without running the numbers yourself, then there's a chance that you're missing an opportunity. And that's what we're really trying to give you guys today, which is just information, some basic math that really speaks to opportunity that you could potentially capture, or an opportunity that you potentially could
take advantage
of, right? In order to hopefully build long-term wealth for you and your family. So I think this is a great breakdown for, part one. And I think what we're going to do is look at part two, which we're going to talk about more of a first-time buyer.
Yeah, different market.
Different segment.
Segment of the market,
So let's take the opportunity and talk about part